Are you from Ipswich?
I'm not from Ipswich. I moved to this house a year ago. I moved to this town 2 years ago from New York City during it was a pandemic move, but I grew up 20 minutes away in Beverly Farms, Massachusetts, and it's the same collection of towns. So I do feel like I moved home. I feel like I'm kind of from here. It's a little different.
What kind of upbringing did you have around here?
Beverly and Ipswich both are on the water, so a lot of beach time. It's not really the suburbs. It's a collection of towns north of Boston. But it's not. It's much more country than that, I'd say. So I guess I did normal kid stuff, just playing out in the yard and riding my bike to town to buy some candy. I rode a school bus to school. I had friends.
Do you have siblings?
I have a younger brother. Tony and I are a year and a half apart. I'm older, and he is autistic. I've recently learned that you're supposed to say he has autism. It's not something that totally defines his whole person. It's just one part of him.
After the sudden passing of her mother, Isabel finds herself stepping into a role she never expected to take on so early, caring for her brother Tony, who has autism, while grieving a profound loss of her own. In this conversation, she reflects on their lifelong bond, the family dynamics that shaped them, and the delicate dance of being and staying a sister when the line between sisterhood and mothering begins to blur. I'm Léa Hirschfeld, and this is episode 12 of Out of Sync, exploring life through disability, one story at a time. New episodes drop every Tuesday on all platforms. Transcripts are on YouTube. You can support this show by clicking on the support link in the episode description, and it's now time to grab a cup of your favorite drink and enjoy the story. Does it make a difference for you to say autistic or has autism?
No, no, no. I normally say he's autistic.
Yeah.
I'm just, I get politically corrected sometimes.
No, I understand. It's a big subject. Like, what words do we use? Do they
Yeah.
sound different to your ear?
No, they don't sound different to me, but my brother, he lives in a life sharing community for adults with developmental differences, and it really is a life sharing community. And they are the ones who kind of corrected my language because they really see the whole person, and they see beyond developmental differences. But for me, my brother, his autism is like that's who he is. I mean, he has many qualities, but it's an essential part of him for sure.
How was it to grow up together? What kind of relationship did you have?
So the thing is because we're so close in age, and he was diagnosed when he was 2.5 years old. Um, I didn't really know any other way. We had a home video though of my third birthday party, and my mom in the video goes to wake my brother up from a nap. I'm getting ready for the party, and he has speech in that. He's saying sort of normal baby speech, no, yes. And he's playing this game with my mom where, where are your eyes? And he points to his eyes. Where's your nose? And points to his nose. And he's engaging with her in a way and speaking in a way that he hasn't in my memory. So they would say he has regressive autism. And I guess, I don't remember, but at his second birthday, my mom kind of just noticed that he wasn't really playing, or he wasn't really engaging with our family. Normally he loved it when my grandparents visited, and he was sort of off in a corner playing with his toys on his own. And she had a background in special needs by chance. She was an antique dealer, and then an interior designer, but she had a background in special needs. So she sort of saw that something was maybe like not quite right. And he was diagnosed when he was 2.5. So growing up, it just was so normal for me because it was my reality. I remember being on the beach very young, with some of our very close family friends. I was probably 4, and Tony was doing what he still does to this day. He was sort of sitting off by himself and sifting the sand through his hands, like taking handfuls of sand and sifting it and looking at it very carefully and kind of making these chanting noises like no 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 no. In another moment on that day, he'd be standing at the water, clapping so like like ecstatically at the waves crashing. And so these other kids on the beach were like, what's going on with your brother? And I said, oh, he's autistic. And they're like, he's artistic? Like, and so that was just always a thing. But I've never felt weird. I almost, from a young age, I sort of picked up on that it almost made people feel weird when I said that my brother was autistic, but I never felt embarrassed or ashamed or anything like that. It was just very much, this is my reality. This is my brother. This is our family. Um,
What did you think they thought, the people? Like, why was it weird to them?
oh, well, in that story, it wasn't weird to them. We were all just little kids,
Mhm.
but I think people don't always know how to react. People that are unfamiliar with special needs, they don't know if like they should be like, oh, I'm so sorry, or oh, I don't know what that is. I think people are just can be uncomfortable with knowing what to say. Like we were just talking about being politically correct around if someone is autistic or has autism. I think people just don't really know.
Did you ever compare yourself to other families when you were a kid?
Yeah, well, my parents divorced when I was young. So I had divorced parents and a brother with special needs. So I wasn't very much like a lot of other kids in my school or other families. But again, I didn't really phase me. It was more so when we did go on a vacation, I sometimes was bummed that I didn't have a playmate. But otherwise, we had a very social life. So I didn't suffer from having a lack of someone to play with in a conventional way, in terms of my brother's nonverbal. Um, so we don't have conversations with each other. And he wouldn't play a make believe game with me. Maybe we can agree on which Disney movie to watch together. But us playing together, starting very young, took the form of me caretaking for him, not because it was asked of me, but that's just how I could engage with him as an older sister.
When you think about caretaking, what would that be? What kind of actions?
From a young age, advocating, maybe I'd be like, Tony wants oatmeal raisin cookies for dessert tonight. Maybe I wanted them too. But yeah, helping him take a bath, washing his hair in the bath. I knew at the age of 5 at least that you have to shield the eyes with your hand from the soap suds as you pour a glass of bath water over the hair to wash out the suds. Now caretaking, helping him decide, he doesn't drive, he doesn't cook, he he's very capable, but he cannot ever be independent. So just caretaking.
Did you ever talk with friends as a kid or as a teenager about how it was at home and your observations, maybe because you knew that it was different in other people's homes, but like,
I don't think I asked kids like what goes on at your house.
mhm.
But all of my friends, when they came to my house, everyone became very familiar with my brother. And, that was probably different for them, like what goes on at my house. But I recently reconnected with some people, from the people I was friends with when I was a lot younger. I haven't seen them in 15 or 20 years. And they asked, they were like, how's your brother? People remember me because of Tony Bacon, I think. Or they just remember him. He sticks out in a good way.
What does he do now?
So Tony is a farmer. He has been living in a life-sharing farming community in upstate New York for the last 10 years. It's largely self-sustainable. Everyone has a job, regardless of whether you're developmentally different or not. Tony's job is working on the estate crew. He cuts and stacks firewood for the entire village of 150 people or something like that. He taps maple trees in the spring to make maple syrup. He, wheels like heavy garden stuff around for the farm. And he has chores within his house. He goes to get the milk from the barn where they milk the cows and delivers it to his house. He also has recently started playing the cello for the last couple of years, which is interesting because I played the cello when we were younger, and now he's the only one who can. They go on hikes, does lots of stuff.
Did you two go to school together?
No, I went to a local public school in Beverly, our town, and he went to Massachusetts has always been really great for public education, particularly special needs. So he went to a place called the North Shore Consortium, which technically is private, but it was paid for by the state. And it was a great place. He rode the bus there as well. I think, and we always had because my parents were divorced and my mom and dad both worked full time. We had a live-in nanny with us always, and they tended to be people that were interested in special needs. So when my brother got home from school, our nanny would do ABA therapy with him, which is applied behavioral. I don't know what the second A is, but that was, I think, largely for communication purposes, like getting him to a place where he could advocate for his wants and needs. And they would use pictures and gestures and rewards. So to get him to say, my name is Tony, there might be an illustration and a physical motion associated with that to get him to say, my name is Tony. And that's sort of how he talks. He's more grunty. He doesn't, but anyway, we used like sunflower seeds as his reward. So seeds are something that I remember a lot from my childhood.
And he became a farmer.
And he became a farmer. There you go.
I mean,
yeah. They have, it's another thing they do. They raise biodynamic seeds on this farm. It's like organic, but beyond. And they have a company called Turtle Tree Seeds.
Did you remember it being easy to find a good school for him and a good place for him to be?
So he went to the North Shore Consortium from the age of, I want to say 4 years old through age 18 or so. And my mom, I don't know if there was a choice. That might have just been something decided based on his needs and the public school system. And then Massachusetts guarantees education for all people through the age of 21 or 22, I believe. So he left earlier than he otherwise would have because my mom found this community where he now lives.
And did you ever, growing up, think about the different stages that you were going through and the ones that he was going through and kind of comparing? I know that I did
No,
that, so.
I didn't. I didn't at all. It wasn't until this process was happening. So I'm already in college. This process was happening of him moving out of the home, our house, to go live at this place called Camp Hill Village. And I remember my mom explaining it, just sort of saying, you know what, like Isabel's off at college. Tony also deserves to go get away from his parents and develop his own life and create a life for himself where whatever he does with his time contributes to something larger than himself, which is exactly what he's doing. And that's what we all do when we do this thing called get a job and contribute. So I wasn't aware of it. I just took for granted that he went to his one school the whole time and I did my stuff, but we shared a lot of other things. My parents are pretty lucky. We would go skiing and we would go hiking and we would go camping and we rode bikes and, swimming in the ocean. Like we've been really exposed to some wonderful experiences, and my brother has as well. He was with us the entire way. And I've been told since that it's pretty impressive that he is able to ski, skate, ride a bike, like sit quietly on an airplane, go to a fancy restaurant and, behave, or I don't know. It's, he's had a very full life. And I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Well, so he's always been with people. So he's learned how to be around people also. Like he was always included in everything that you did. So you guys have a lot of things in common.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
wasn't just
like in a room sort of, I don't know, not doing anything.
Waiting for life.
While I went off and had this
So
fabulous childhood and fabulous life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that can be a reality. Sometimes it's kind of unbalanced. The opportunities that we're offered as kids who do and don't have disabilities. And so I always wonder how it goes in different people's families.
I remember, so he now plays the cello and he's like leading his orchestra at his farm community. And I'm a little jealous because I chose to play the cello when I was younger and I gave it up. But I remember around that same time when I was playing the cello, my mom wanted to start music therapy with my brother, so he started playing the piano, and then I was jealous and I wanted to play the piano too. So that's just that's like what one typical sibling rivalry thing that most people had all the time, and I only have like a few morsels of it in my experience.
What are the other ones?
Well, this is actually kind of a funny story about adolescence. My babysitter had this tote bag that my mom gave her for her birthday, kind of a nice tote bag, and I had one too. And so I would bring my clothes to my dad's house in this bag, and our babysitter would bring our towels to go swimming in the same bag. And he kind of developed this obsession with the bag. So as it related to me, he would like unpack all my clothes when we got to my dad's house and put them away for me, but not very neatly. And it just really annoyed me. I'd be like, Tony, stop messing with my stuff. And then with the babysitter, her bag full of towels in the back of the car. He was 12 years old. His hormones were, starting to happen. He's going through puberty, and he started sort of like rubbing himself in the car with this bag. And of course, like my mom's like, okay, well, this isn't really appropriate behavior. She went to some sort of talk, probably organized by my brother's school, on how to talk about puberty and bodies changing and masturbation with your children that otherwise maybe not don't understand, don't know how to communicate, but still have human physical urges. So whatever she did, the message was, Tony, you can only do this when you're in your pajamas. Tony, you can only do this when you're in your pajamas. My mom would always give him like a double. So the next day, and she's trying to articulate like this is something you do in privacy when you're sleeping, and the next day he gets dropped off at our house in his little short bus that brought him to school, and runs upstairs to his room and puts on his pajamas, which I'm sorry, I'm probably embarrassing him by sharing this story, but I think it's so cute.
It is, and it's a really important point, having access to sexuality and intimacy, and like trying really like getting to explore that. Do you remember if your mother told him about it, or if you even had conversations with him?
No, he's so typically autistic in lack of interest in people. I don't see him ever wanting to have a special friendship or a relationship, so sexual romance, just not going to happen. He does love deeply, and he like loves his family and people that have been in his life for a long time, but he's still kind of a loner. When we're all together, he's doing his puzzle in the corner, and only coming over to participate in conversation when he wants to have the cheese and crackers that we're all enjoying or something. Since he's moved to this community, he's gotten better at sort of being in the company of others, but he, yeah, like kind of a loner.
So he lives with a bunch of people. How is life organized out there? How many people are there?
So the whole place is, I think, I don't want to get my stats wrong, but let's say it's about 10 houses, and the houses probably all have about 5 villagers, which are people with developmental differences, and 5 coworkers, which are the people that live and work alongside them. And they all share meals together, but you'll be invited to somebody else's house for certain meals, and everyone goes and does their jobs, and they do things as a house, like go to a music festival on the weekend. There's activities and festivals and parties and things within the community. It's a very spiritual place. They go to Sunday service. It's run like a village. It's a village. He walks around independently within the village and goes to his job, and he knows his routine. He knows where he's got to be at 2:00. But in terms of the autonomy of this kind of job for my brother, I think it's really special because he takes a lot of pride in his work purely because it's integral to the greater functioning of the community. If somebody doesn't show up to do their job, somebody's not getting milk. Or if somebody doesn't show up to do their job, like those cookies aren't going to be packaged to sell at the bakery. And in that way, I know that it's My mom, she always knew that um, Tony working in a grocery store and bagging groceries and living at home wasn't really going to cut it for him. It's not just like working and living. They really indulge like the whole being and want to create like new experiences. So we have these really close friends who love my brother and love Camp Hill Village. And they have this amazing place in Idaho at the foot of the Sawtooth Mountains, just like God's country. And my mom had this idea that it would be like such a cool place to bring my brother's house on a trip because it's just beautiful and there's wildflowers and there's hiking and there's paddleboarding on this glacier lake and it's just a really special place. And so we made that trip happen this summer. And my brother we're beach people. He loves the ocean. But here we are in the mountains, and I just haven't seen him so consistently happy, glowing, jumping around, bopping his head, making his stimming sounds. Anyway, I just saw him so happy, bringing his friends to share this place that he'd been before. And I think he was just incredibly proud, like really, really proud.
What did his friends think about the place?
Oh, they loved it. My brother's the only nonverbal member of his household. One woman wasn't sure she wanted to come on the trip. Her name is Linda, and she's in her 70s. But she asked me if they had thrift stores in Idaho, and I said, they sure do. So not only were we hiking and like hot springing, we were doing a whole thrift store tour for Linda. So she loved it, and she got some great things. Yeah, they had a great time. Everyone had a good time.
Who found this place?
Idaho or Camp Hill Village?
Camp Hill.
Camp Hill. Camp Hill, I don't want to get my stats wrong, but it's a Rudolf Steiner community. I think Steiner founded these communities after World War II to save people with special needs that might have been at risk. And then some families in Brooklyn learned about it and were looking for solutions for their children with special needs. And they got some money together and got some property together and started Camp Hill Village. And so my mom, I'm sure her wheels were turning as my brother was in his teenage years. I'm sure she was thinking about what was going to happen when she was no longer alive and my dad was no longer alive, what was going to happen to me and my level of responsibility. And she was also thinking about my brother and the fact that I was going off to college. I'd be moving out of the home and getting a job and having a life. And I think she wanted the same kind of thing for him. And so she just had this fantasy. And one way or another, through networking and chatting, she learned about Camp Hill Village. And the rest is history.
Is it easy to get into a place like that?
No, it's not easy necessarily because they need to have space. And there's a number of them. There's, probably they're international, and there's a number in the US.
I discovered there's some in France.
There's some in
two.
France.
Yeah.
It's a process. There has to be space, so somebody needs to leave in order for somebody to come. I think elder care is a little bit of an issue right now. It's an aging population. They need to have a place for people to go. People that have significant physical handicaps, it's hard for them to be there. And anyone who's in the admissions process has to have a 6-week trial visit to make sure that everyone gels with everyone else. And the best part about it, though, which is, it's really an amazing, beautiful farm, heartwarming place, and it's free, which is kind of unheard of. And it's largely staffed by volunteers, and they get Social Security from everyone who lives there. And then there's a lot of fundraising and a large endowment and that kind of thing.
So your brother is going to be there for many, many years. It's kind of a forever kind of place.
Mm-hmm.
Does he come back on weekends? Does he visit?
Yeah. So everyone leaves for Thanksgiving about 10 days, and everyone leaves for about 2 weeks in August. And we can't get enough of my brother, so he comes home a lot more frequently than that. My mom and dad were pretty good at inviting his house home for long weekends and, taking everyone out to dinner, taking them to Boston. Yeah, he gets a good amount of time home. He gets a good summer vacation, holidays.
Has it been important for you to talk about your brother to your friends or your partners?
All my friends are really old, deep friends, and so they just know about Tony because they've either been around for a long time at my house on vacation with us, and all my partners, I'd say, yeah, early on when we're dating, I'd tell them about my brother, probably on the first date. Like, oh yeah, tell me about your family. My brother's autistic, like blah blah blah. But I think I've always known as I got serious with people that even though Tony as will be at Camp Hill Village for the rest of his life, largely living there and fully taken care of, I've always known that at some point my parents would die and he would be my responsibility fully. So of course, like when I'm getting serious with a partner, I got to make sure that they'd be okay with that. And if say I get married and I am married. I'm speaking as my 25-year-old self. Say I get married and have my own family someday and then my parents die and we take our kids to Disney World, I want to bring Tony too, obviously. And everyone's been pretty cool about it. I've been lucky that I was living in New York City and my parents, I'm lucky in a lot of ways, and my mom and my stepfather have a small beach cottage on Long Island. It's a really special place for us. And my brother would take a good chunk of the summer and be there with them. He'd have like 3 weeks in August, and he'd always come for the 4th of July. He loves the fireworks. And so my wife now, she would come out there on weekends with me. So she kind of got to just like ease into the way we do things and get to know Tony in a very natural way. And so my mom has since passed away and it was shocking and tragic and sudden and all of that. So this thing that I wondered about as an abstract concept, that sort of stepping into being responsible for my brother, happened a lot earlier than I had imagined. My dad is totally still with us. He's a wonderful man, but he's in his late 70s, and my stepdad is totally with us and he's a wonderful man, but same, he's in his 70s. And my brother is 6'4" and he's active and he's got a big appetite and he's used to my mom's delicious gourmet cooking, and a chef. My dad and my stepfather both are not. um Now I conveniently live 20 minutes from my childhood home, and well, we have two childhood homes because our mom's house and our dad's house. But so my mom died, I was already living in this area, quote unquote home. And it happened pretty naturally that when Tony came home for Thanksgiving, he came to stay with me just because I felt the need to kind of keep up the same kind of care and routines that my mom provided for him. And I didn't know if my dad would be up to snuff. But yeah. So now I'm in an interesting place. I've always been very involved as a big sister, as a sister, and I'm sort of treading the line right now between being a mom and being a sister.
How do you feel about it?
Well, I'm working on it. I think I tried too hard to be a mom during the first year without my mom. I kind of am realizing that it's okay to start doing things my way, or I should say our way. And by our, I want to include my brother. He's, 34 years old, and my wife. They're very close in age. She's 34 years old. I'm 35. I don't know. Sometimes we're trying to just relax a little bit more about it all. I've noticed before my mom died, before the pandemic, when I still lived in New York City, for my brother's birthday, one year, I wanted him to come visit me, and we were going to go to all these like great restaurants and go see The Lion King on Broadway and just kind of live it up and be kids. And I got a bunch of my friends together and we went to this restaurant in Koreatown that's on like it's pretty high up. It's got a really amazing view of the Manhattan skyline. And I just figured that Tony would love the lights, the view. And I also wanted to like have a fun night out with my friends. And I wasn't sure whether he would care if they were there or not. I kind of figured he'd be sitting at one end of the table, just kind of like zoning out, looking at the view, but enjoying the delicious food. But it was so clear to me as one of my first times just like being out with him where my parents are very far away. I could just see how much he loved the vibe of being out with like only peers, kind of partying. He was just like really excited to be like just kids. So I think what I'm trying to do is step more into sister role. We'll just be kids, but of course I'll be caring for him because he can't make his own goddamn omelets or green smoothies in the morning.
How is it to see your wife and brother together?
um, I think she would love for him to acknowledge her just a little bit more. I think she would love for me to look at her a little bit more the way I adoringly look at my brother. But it's been really nice for me to see the way that she has sort of internalized his rhythms and will step in to help or to care or to anticipate his needs, if I'm not there, or just to be. It's nice to see them kind of being buds together.
Have there been conversations about that?
I think our first year of marriage, she was not expecting to have my brother be our responsibility as much as he was. Again, that's something that I probably did more out of a need to like mother. I just was confused about roles and space. And
Because your mother's passing was close to your wedding?
yeah, so the timeline is the pandemic happened and my wife and I moved out of our Brooklyn apartment and we're renting a place 20 minutes away from my mom and my dad and my stepdad. Tony was pretty locked down at Camp Hill Village, nobody in, nobody out. And then my mom got kind of pretty sick. We didn't really realize it though. And in the meantime, Chase and I were replanning our wedding that had to be rescheduled. And we were deciding that we wanted to live here in Ipswich. And we were in the process of purchasing this house that I now live in. And 2 weeks before the closing of that house, and 6 weeks before my wedding, my mom died by suicide. But it was sort of, it was related to, I felt like she had a terminal illness. So it's been a big adjustment. There's been a lot of adjustments and role adjustments just on top, layers and layers and layers. I remember though, so I went home when I heard the news immediately. And it was just a whirlwind, like so shocking. But of course, like Tony's top of mind. And I wasn't really sure how to tell him that my mom had died. I was still like understanding that. I'm still understanding the reality that my mom is dead, And I made a plan, like, because our house was filling up with people gathering. And I made a plan. I was like, okay, well, Tony and Rose will be here. And
Who's Rose?
Rose is Tony's house mother at Camp Hill Village. And she, during the pandemic, my mom had always become very close to her and I've become close to her. But during the pandemic, my mom would FaceTime with Rose and Tony and other members of his house once a week, which was not something they did pre-pandemic. It was because they weren't able to physically see each other as often. Everyone was Zooming. So I think she and Rose just got particularly close. And in the months leading up to her death, she would prefer if someone from Camp Hill Village would come home for his visits once the place opened up because she didn't feel physically capable to sort of take care of him on her own. So anyway, I was FaceTiming Rose, Tony's house mother at Camp Hill, to sort of tell Rose, my mother passed away yesterday and the funeral is going to be in a week. And would you be able to come with Tony? Does he want to come in a few days? And she's like, I think he'd like to come be with you as soon as possible. She was such a important person for Tony. I don't want to keep using the word advocate, but as an advocate, like for some weird way, I saw him as like well, what are we going to do about Tony? And I forgot that he was like a human who would want to go home immediately to be with his people and grieve his mother. And we had a really magical week. I mean, there were lots of important people that were gathered around that time, but it was pretty incredible being with Tony and Rose and my dad and my stepdad and Chase, my wife, and my godmother, lots of people. But Tony and Rose and I separately, though, would pretty much go for a beach walk every day. And there are a few special things that happened. One is that we went to go see my mom's body at the funeral home 2 days before the funeral, which is something I don't think we would have typically done. But at Camp Hill Village, where my brother lives, when someone passes on, that's what they do. Everyone visits the body, and I'm sure it's a way to understand the finality of things, or to understand that the spirit or the soul of that person is no longer in that corpse. So we went to go see my mom, and we made it pretty symbolic and spiritual. And Rose asked, wait, I should tell about Tony first. Tony and I went to say goodbye to my mom together, and we brought flowers. And I didn't really want to, it was hard for me to see her because it's very different from the real person. But Tony was so sweet and knew exactly what to do. And he just said, Mommy, which sounds like mommy, and just gave her the most tender kiss and placed the flower in her hands. And then we were done. And then someone else went to go have a turn to say goodbye. And Tony like bolts through the door, like so happy, and gave her another flower. And then Rose asked if she could do the hallelujah, which I didn't know what that was, but it's spelling out the letters of hallelujah in eurythmy, which is this movement that they do at Camp Hill Village and Rudolf Steiner. It's an anthroposophic thing. And I saw her sort of sending my mom's spirit off to like another realm with this movement. So it was beautiful to have Rose there. Something that happened that was really funny that week is, no, wait, I should tell you this. Okay. So my mom and I, we've like lost Tony a couple of times. When we were younger, like 4 years old, we were hanging out at our friend's beach on Long Island, and the waves are really big there, and Tony went missing. So all of the moms were freaking out, like, oh my, where'd he go? And my mom sort of thinking like, okay, what would he do? What would he do? And she sort of thought like, oh my God, maybe he went over to somebody else's picnic, is like eating their chips. So she looked around. He wasn't anywhere at anyone else's picnics. And then she thought, okay, what was he interested in earlier? And she remembered that he was really interested in our friend's trampoline. They had a trampoline in their backyard. So she walks back through the path to their house where the trampoline was to see if he's there. He's not there. But she hears him making his little chanting sounds off in the distance, like na 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 na, clapping his hands. And he went to the neighbors. He got confused. He was at the neighbors, and they had a maid who did not speak English, and neither did Tony. And she was giving him cookies. It was very sweet. And then we lost him in the shopping mall a couple times. And each time my mom would think like, okay, like what was he into? Where would he go? And one time we found him like enraptured by these koosh balls, which are these like 90s like rubber threaded balls that he was just so stimulated by. So he'd left us to go back to these koosh balls. Another time we found him sitting in the car in the parking lot. He just went back to the car like a little homing pigeon. So the day of my mom's funeral, Tony and I and Rose go for a walk on the beach, and it was like 95 degrees out, super humid. We jump in the water. I was sipping on a can of seltzer. And because of COVID, there were no garbage cans on the beach, so I couldn't throw it out. And I just sort of crunched it up and placed it on the seawall. And Tony asked me, like, oh, like recycling? And I was like, yeah, we'll recycle it later. But we're going to leave it there for now because he likes to throw things out. He likes to recycle things. He does not like to litter. So I leave the can there. We go for our walk. And then we go home. And we're sort of trying to like get in the shower, like get ready to go to this funeral, which is our mother's. And I think I gave Tony a bowl of ice cream, which is his favorite thing in the world, bar none. And he got up mid ice cream and bolted out the door of the kitchen. And nobody really thought much about it, even though it was pretty bizarre that he would get up mid ice cream. And 5 minutes pass. I go to find him because it's time for him to take a shower to get ready, and he's nowhere to be found. And I'm like, Rose, like, do you know where Tony is? Like, Chase, like, does anyone know where Tony is? He's nowhere. And we're like, oh, where could he be? And I do that thing. I'm like, well, what was he thinking about? Like, what? He got up mid ice cream. Like, what's more important than ice cream? I'm like, oh, Tony went back to get that can of seltzer to recycle it. So he had run, like, we live a 15-minute walk from the beach, had like power walked back in like 94 degrees to get this soda can. And somebody hopped in the car to go like look for him. And that's where he was walking back from the beach, dripping in sweat with this can to recycle it.
That's a great story. What else did your mother leave you?
She taught me not to talk about things with Tony too much in advance because he can get really caught up on the structure, schedule, the list. And once you get into listing, it's not a fun place to be. When he's anxious in particular, he just wants to go through the list of the day. So like breakfast, milkshake, which is what he calls a green smoothie, eggs, because he gets 3 breakfasts at my house. And then he goes walking. So we're going to go walking. And then he wants to say lunch, puzzle, rest, bath, snack, music, dinner, ice cream. He always gets really stuck on ice cream. Brush teeth, go to bed. And then no, brush teeth, Aladdin. And if he does what I just did and gets a little mixed up in the order, we got to go all over again. And once you're locked into that list, it's really hard to get out of it. So she really taught me to just not talk about stuff too much. I don't know. I mean, the 3 of us are very similar. My mom, my brother, and I. I'm not sure who started what. There's a fair amount of like type A OCD, liking things just a certain way. We all like to take bubble baths and go for really long walks and eat really well, listen to soulful music. I think now that Tony's style might change a bit more now that my mom's not picking out his outfits and I'm picking out his outfits. So yeah, I don't know. I'm keeping a lot the same, but making a few modifications.
You said earlier that you had started thinking a while ago about how it would be, kind of preparing yourself about how it would be when it would be just you two. How is it now in comparison to what you imagined?
I didn't think it would be this early, so I always imagined that I would already have my own family when Tony started staying at my house. But I didn't think anyone was going to die in a shocking, untimely way. So I guess I just thought I'd be a lot older and more mature, and I wouldn't have so much adjusting to do because the death would be natural and maybe the grief would be different. So I think what's just made everything crazy is that I'm dealing with like so much adjustment at once and having the part-time responsibility of my brother is just one of the things, but it's very important to me and it's top of mind. I think others in my life would say that I should chill out about it a little bit and prioritize getting myself together and that Tony's fine and happy. I had a reading with a medium who knew my mom quite well and knows Tony and knows the whole thing. And my mom's spirit was speaking to me through the medium, or she was telling the medium that she's always around me. I'm not able to see it or hear it. But that she's been able to talk to my brother from day one. He has this open channel of communication with my mom. And so in that way, he hasn't really had to say goodbye. And there have been a lot of big changes in his life as a result of her death, but he's okay with it because he has that sort of, whether it's her spirit that's speaking to him or it's this innate understanding, or maybe he's just more grounded than I am and doesn't have the same neuroses. Certainly it's got a pretty like sweet deal at Camp Hill Village in terms of this like utopian lifestyle, but I sort of lost my train of thought. I did an ayahuasca retreat way before my mom died, and I felt so much of a calling to my brother because a lot of the music we were listening to was very similar to the sounds he makes, and he often makes these sounds when he's stimulated in nature. Trees moving, waves crashing, leaves falling, long meadow grass waving. And I've had a hard time with my mom's death. It's not been easy. And recently when my brother was home for Thanksgiving, I just like did a massive grocery store shop and cleared my week so that we could go on lots of long walks. I mean, just like made time so that I could just be with him, but also attend to, I wanted him to have a good time. I wanted to have a stimulating vacation, whatever. What am I trying to say? I'm not a martyr. But we're on this walk and I wasn't feeling the best. And Tony was just like skipping down the driveway. The sunset was glowing pink. There was this like beautiful silhouette of bare November tree branches against this pink sky. And he was just like so jazzed, so like pleased with this simple pleasure, or maybe with my company. And it was just a really nice reminder for myself to just like chill out. And in that way, I can like get off my high horse and see that my brother can be quite like a support to me as well and can be a teacher. And my mom said that. She told me that. And it stuck with me that we were laughing once about he can be so annoying and can be really exhausting, but like he can be incredibly grounding.
What's your process for healing? What do you do for yourself?
For me, lots of things. I go for a lot of long nature walks. I talk to various kinds of therapists. I'm trying to meditate. I have done some great plant medicine ceremonies. I've been trying to write about my experience. I've sort of been hard on myself because my mom was a really big presence at Camp Hill Village. She was on the board. She wasn't like she like raised the most money, but she had really a lot of like style and pizzazz and great ideas and heart, and was really good at mobilizing and getting the message out and making friends for the village who would then always think of them when they were making their philanthropic contributions. And I've like really, really, really wanted to step into her shoes and continue that effort in terms of advocacy and friend raising and fundraising and just involvement, like having my body on the campus of Camp Hill Village more often to just, I think they enjoy it when I visit, and I enjoy it when I visit. And so a part of my healing has been letting that step aside a little bit, unfortunately, because I've really had to focus on myself. But that Idaho trip that we took, that almost ended up being a trip in my mom's memory, was really healing for me because I think it was her dream and we made it happen. And I think it was just a really special bonding experience for the house to all go on a trip together, Tony's house. And I know it was like really, it was very special. The pride was just like dripping off of him. And I don't mean in hubris. I mean, he was proud to share his people with us and share us with his people. So I look forward to healing more and getting more and more involved in Camp Hill Village and really stepping into my own shoes.
What has been your relationship to your father and your stepfather throughout these past years or even growing up?
My mom and dad divorced when I was about 4 and Tony was 3. My mom didn't marry my stepdad until I was 12 and he was 11. But they are both like super involved in my life and in Tony's life. You know, my dad was a typical dad. We'd go to his house on Wednesdays, order pizza. We could watch whatever we wanted and eat whatever we wanted. So Tony loved going to daddy's house when we were young. And so did I. And we still do. But I guess like that, you know, my mom was a little bit of, she was the hard ass and the disciplinarian and like had healthy food all the time. But my dad is so sweet with my brother and Tony just adores him. And they do their little guy bonding. My dad likes to play golf and Tony goes with him and likes to ride around in the golf cart. And my dad will intentionally put his clubs away in the wrong place because Tony really likes to fix things and he'll put them back in the right place, the right compartments of the golf bag. And my stepdad Tony's actually sort of the reason my mom and my stepdad met because my stepfather was living in Denver at the time and they met at a cocktail party in Boston and they connected and like had lunch the next day before my stepfather was flying home. My mom was describing her children, me and my brother, and my stepfather was like, "Oh, like autism, I don't know anything about that. Can you tell me more?" And so she decided to describe my brother at the beach, you know, like he loves to just like, he's so stimulated by the waves crashing. So if you saw him on the beach, you'd see this like skinny little guy, like jumping up and down and clapping his hands and swaying his torso from side to side and giggling and making weird noises. And my stepdad said, what beach do you guys go to? And she told him where, and he was like, I saw your son, because he'd been in the exact same beach. So that was special. And so obviously when he and my mom got married, he kind of had an idea of what he was signing up for. And he's really sweet with Tony. They have their own man bonds too. David like loves to give Tony really strong head massages, these tickles, and you know, if he needs help stacking firewood, or Tony, like, can you help take out the garbage, that kind of stuff. But my dad and my stepdad are both very sweet with Tony. But my mom just really led the charge, super led the charge.
How have they both stepped in for the past 2 years?
They step in as much as I allow them to. I've also, I guess I inherited that, like, take charge quality. They'll help me in any way they can. But I sort of have taken the reins. And I think I wonder sometimes if that's like fair to my dad, if he would prefer to be the boss. I sort of made myself the boss.
What do you think he thinks?
Well, I'm sure he like kind of like Tony will go spend a night or two with my dad. I think my dad understands that Tony needs a little bit more stimulation than my dad's able to offer. And it's purely because he's older. And I believe that Tony requires a lot of physical exercise and fresh air and outdoor time. So in the winter or something, my dad just can't go on like a 20-minute. He can do a 20-minute walk. He can't go on like a 5-mile hike, which is what we do.
And so who does all the birthdays and all of that now?
I feel like my dad and my stepdad were totally managed by my mom. So birthdays, like, I don't know, they don't think about it as much. My dad will be like, what do you want for your birthday? But I'm like, oh, we got to get Tony home for his birthday. His birthday's coming up. Like, we should. I'd say I take the initiative on things because I'm neurotic and I'm always thinking about stuff. I don't know this, but I wonder if Tony's birthday is March 24th. But if I was like, it's your birthday, I don't know if he would know. But he knows what a birthday is. And yes, he gets very excited about presents and cake. And but we never had parties for his birthdays because his birthday was in March and so was my mom's. And that's normally when school was out. So we were usually on a vacation. I think when I was a little kid, I'd be like, doesn't Tony need a birthday party too? And yes, of course, it was all my parents' friends over for his birthday, whereas my birthday party was my friends. I threw Tony a birthday party with all my friends at that Koreatown place.
And how do you envision the future now? What do you want for yourself?
Um, March is a killer month for me because my wife is March 12th. My mom is March 18th. Tony is March 24th. And I think my mother-in-law is the 26th.
So you have to
So
save up.
I get hammered in March. I have to save up. I don't know. We used to always take Tony on a vacation for his birthday. He doesn't care as much about things. He loves puzzles. Like whenever he opens a present, he shakes it before he unwraps it because he's checking if it's a puzzle. But he really likes experiences, like being somewhere cool and different, skiing somewhere out in the natural world. So my wife having a birthday so close to Tony is now problematic because she might not want to do the same thing, and I really have to prioritize her. And then my mom's birthday is just always going to be a big day because I'm going to really think about her. And so last year we threw a birthday party for my mom on March 18th, even though she was not on this earth anymore, and invited some of her closest friends. And Tony was home, and we had a cake, and he was really excited about it. And it was a full moon outside, and he was just jazzed at this full moon. And then he and my dad and I went on a vacation for Tony's birthday, and he had a few presents, and I made him like breakfast in bed. But it was his real birthday was like kind of like he got a vacation for it, so it was every day was a good day.
I know that you're in the midst of finding a new job and like kind of transitioning. Do you want to talk about it? And how do you think it's related to your story?
So I've been nervous about getting a real job because I've been nervous about how I haven't had a real job for a while now. So being able to spend, my wife has been keeping track, but I don't know, 65 days out of the year with my brother has been possible. We don't have a great vacation policy in this world. So I've been nervous about getting a real job again because I don't know if I need flexibility or I want flexibility to be able to spend as much time with my brother as I can. But I'm getting the real job as a means to an end to hopefully become a healer of sorts and work with people in end of life, grief, and I probably would like to go in a more spiritual direction in terms of healing because of the things that have helped me in my healing of my own grief and in the like totally innate ways that I see my brother experiencing the world, the woo-woo stuff, the experience of oneness and dimensions and spirits and our connection to nature and animals and light. Like light has become a great friend of mine. My mom loved light. My brother loves light. I love light. Dusk, dawn, golden light. And I mean, my walks in nature, ceremonies I've done with plant medicine, conversations with teachers and friends about different spiritual interpretations of the world, life and death, consciousness. All of those things have been incredibly helpful for my healing. And I just want to help people do the same thing.
When I invited you to talk on this podcast, did you have specific subjects that you wanted to bring up?
I wanted to talk about the line between the mother sister role that I now have, which is obviously like largely related to my mom's death. Totally related.
Do you think there will ever be an answer to that, or is it going to be like a dance?
I think it's going to be a dance. I think it's going to be a practice for me to become more of a sister. Like, I think I have learned so much from my mom and my dad. I mean, just there's something about my growing up with my younger brother has made it so that I've always been in a caregiving, empathetic position. And so then at the loss of my mom, feeling more strongly that responsibility to fill the space left behind was something that I created on my own. It's like everyone's parents are going to die at some point, and nobody swoops in and is like, oh, I'm going to be your fake mom. I think I just need to practice how to learn to be a sister who now has like a little bit more responsibility.
Can you separate both notions of sister and caregiving, or do they work together for you?
I think the reason I say I'm his sister primarily, but the reason I say caregiver is just because my brother Tony requires a lot of prompts. So like the arrangements to get him home, or the buying and cooking the food, and he wants my help picking out his outfit. I have to run the bath. He doesn't know how to run the bath himself and set the temperature correctly. Or I wash his hair when he's in the bath and shave. And when he brushes his teeth, he wants me to stand there with him and count with him. I don't think he does any of this stuff at Camp Hill Village. I think that somehow like I've enabled this. It's a weird cycle of he wants my cue. And I'm sure I sometimes it's annoying, but it's great to feel needed.
Are there some times that you feel like you're only his sister?
No, because yeah, I mean, yes. But what was just going through my head is that like show me an older sister who doesn't sort of want to like own or like was dote on or tell what boss around or their younger sibling. I know that my sister-in-law like was sort of confusing for her when I stepped into the scene with my wife because there's a new boss in town. She was so used to bossing her little sister around and sort of keeping her and showing her the way to do things. So
it's also your personality.
yeah, yeah, sure. You're not that kind of big sister?
I absolutely am.
Oh.
I'm the younger one, but
Right.
I do find it, and to me, the role change would be not being a mother, although I think I can be very maternal with my brother, but it's more about being the little big sister.
Totally. I've always been fascinated by younger siblings of people with special needs because I mean inherently you do have to help them do certain things.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is not typical for that age except when you all become adults and
it's like the model is reversed.
Yeah.
And at the same time there's just some point when you get older where you can see that it's a give relationship, that you're not the only one giving, but it's hard to see it sometimes, I think, when you're younger because you don't have the experience. Really.
And as we get older and hopefully wiser, you see that maybe the exchange or the give it doesn't look the same.
Yep.
But
and you learn to see. You learn how to see in between lines. You learn how to read nonverbal. Well, your brother has always been nonverbal. Mine is, but we can't have conversations. And yeah, you try to read the hugs, the moment you described earlier when your brother was looking and gagging at the sunset and was so excited and so much in the present, and you just looked at him and you were like, right, I need to be looking at the sun and enjoying this moment right now because I'm just myself and I think about too much.
Yeah, right. Because like the nature of impermanence is just like there's
we think about too much stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's why I have this joke that sometimes I'm like, God, has he been faking it this whole time? I mean, I'm jealous of the world that he gets to live in. I'm jealous of the community that he is a part of.
Why?
It's like utopian. And I'm sure his world, he doesn't know who Trump is. And I don't think he would be capable of hurting someone's feelings and feeling the shame from that. And I don't know. I'm sure he's capable of having his feelings hurt. But there's just this like innocence, but it's innocence in a pure way. Yeah.
Would you have a final word?
Well, my final word is just that I could like really just keep going on and talking like this for days.
Is it the first time that you share your story like that?
Maybe all of it like that, but no, I really love to talk about my brother a lot, and I love to talk about Camp Hill Village where he is. I love to talk about my mom a lot, so I really could just go on and on and on. I mean, the thing about Tony is, he's like, he just makes me so happy, and I'm so in love with him in the least creepy way. It's just that he's just such a loving, beautiful person that I could just endlessly talk about him.
Thank you, Isabel.
Oh, thanks, Léa.
Thanks for this time together. It was great. You've been listening to Out of Sync, exploring life through disability one story at a time. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Transcripts are available on YouTube, and French language stories on Décalé, Decales. I'm Léa Hirschfeld. Thanks for listening.